Hello baker friends, welcome back to Budget Baking Adventures and our Christmas in July. Today we are going to be making, I call it Mocha Chip Shortbread, but it's really coffee chocolate chip shortbread because I make this recipe every year for the holidays. So this recipe is super inexpensive to make. It costs about $5 for one whole batch. And the most expensive ingredients here are our butter and our chocolate chips. Everything else is minimal. So my best advice is get your butter and your chocolate chips on sale whenever you can and stock up. This way it makes your recipes less expensive to make. Okay, so shortbread's delish. It is buttery, sweet goodness. So this recipe, the original shortbread recipe, I actually got from an old friend of mine's mom. She made it one year and I fell in love with it. So I asked her for the recipe. So oftentimes I'll just make the standard shortbread recipe, but sometimes I like to change it up. So this recipe that we're going to make today is the original shortbread recipe that I've changed up. I do it this way with the coffee and the chocolate chips, and then I also make it with lemonade. I do a lemonade flavored one where I add lemon juice. So anyhow, I have got 2 sticks of salted butter that I just put in my mixer. Hopefully you guys like this new layout. I'm trying something a little bit different, hoping I could get a little closer to you and actually have a conversation at this angle. So let's see what happens. Okay, so like I said, I've got 2 sticks of salted butter in my mixer. I have already preheated my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I've already lined a 9 by 13 baking dish with nonstick foil. Has to be nonstick, or of course you can use parchment paper. Do you like my little Christmas in July setup? Just for you. Okay, our oven is ready. All right, so I've softened my butter. You want it to be room temp. Again, I use salted butter. And we are going to mix our butter with our sugar. So the sugar in this recipe is a ½ a cup plus 2 tablespoons. I know it sounds crazy, but that's how the recipe was given to me originally, and I didn't deviate from it ever because, oh, look at me, I forgot the 2 tablespoons, because it just tastes perfect. So this is how it was given to me, and this is how I do it. So we do a ½ a cup plus 2 tablespoons of sugar, and we're gonna cream that together. See if I can get that out of the way for you. All right, let's turn her on, lock it into place. And I've got it turned up to about a level 4. Seems a little unsturdy. Oh, I see why. All right, I'll fix it later. Sometimes there's, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's like this piece right here, and it's actually supposed to be in. But the more I use my mixer, the more it pokes out. So I have to get a little hammer and tap, tap, tap it back in. That's why she's a little unstable. All right, so we're gonna let that cream for a couple of minutes. And then we are going to add our flour and our instant coffee, which I got this from Dollar Tree. So yes, this whole container was $1.25, which helps make this recipe economical. But you can use any instant coffee. It can be instant coffee, it can be instant espresso, it can be whatever you have in your pantry if you already have some. Otherwise, you can go and buy a whole bottle of it from Dollar Tree. All right, this looks great. It's already a nice pale yellow color, which is what we want when we're creaming our butter and sugar. Typically, it can take anywhere from like 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the speed of your mixer. She was in rare form today, so we're good to go. All right, so now we're gonna add our flour, which is 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And in case you guys didn't know, I always have my recipe here. Sometimes it's out of the screen so you can't see it, but today it's right here. I make these recipes all the time, but there's only a couple that I have absolutely memorized. So there you have it. Okay, so there's 1 cup of flour, so I'm going to turn her on low. Otherwise, you know what happens. And then we're going to do another cup, a level cup. We don't want heaping cups. We want them level. No, I'm going to turn her back down. And I'm an advocate for scraping the bowl. So we're going to do that in just a minute, right after I add my instant coffee, which is usually a teaspoon. Let me turn this off. It's usually a teaspoon of instant coffee that I add. If you really love coffee, you can definitely add more. I say start with a teaspoon and see how it looks to you, but I know I like the coffee flavor, so I'm going to go with 2 teaspoons and see how it looks to me. And then if I want to add more, I can add more than 2 teaspoons. So this is a rather crumbly mixture. So if you're making this and it looks wrong because it's crumbly, it's not wrong, it's right. So I'm going to scrape down the sides. It's a very dry dough, so to say, because there's no eggs in it. But trust me, it does not lack in flavor. It is so buttery and delicious. All right, so I added 2 teaspoons of coffee. I'm going in. I'm going to add a 1/3 teaspoon because I want to taste that coffee. I'm a coffee connoisseur of sorts, you could say. I love it. I just love the stuff. I love the way it tastes. I love the way it smells. I just love it. I don't care if it's regular or decaf. I still love it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add our chocolate chips. I have made this recipe with regular chocolate chips before. It's perfectly fine. But I prefer the mini chips for this recipe. So I'm going to add 1 cup of mini chips. I have a feeling there's not much more than a cup left in my bag, so I'm just going to use it all. So I've got a heaping cup, which is fine. I like to cut my shortbread squares rather small, maybe like 1 inch. So oftentimes with the larger chocolate chips, it's just kind of too much for the little bites. So I like to use the minis. We're going to add them in. Just turn it on low and add in a cup. Sorry, girl. No, that's tough. I need to name my mixer. Any ideas? Put your ideas in the comments, please. I've always said I should name her Joy because baking brings me joy, but I never officially named her. I need your help, guys. We need to name her. Okay, so here we go. I've got my 9x13, and yep, you guys can see this. So everything is going to be stuck right now, but it's good because then you can see the texture of the shortbread and what it should be. It's very stiff, but like I said, it's supposed to be. Trust me. You gotta trust. All right, so I don't want to waste any of the dough or the little mini chips, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to scrape everything down really good, and then I'm going to take this off. Okay, and here we go. You guys can see everything as I pour this in. It's going to come out in like one big clump. One big, beautiful clump. Okay. All right. So you can take your spatula now and you can smooth this down. I'm going to use my hands. You guys know I don't like using my hands because I don't like to get my hands dirty, but this definitely works best with your digits. Your little phalanges. All right. So I'm just pressing it into the pan. Now, when you make the standard shortbread recipe, so if you wanted to make this without the instant coffee or without the mini chips, you would use the same recipe and just omit those, okay? If you were making the standard recipe without the chips and the coffee though, typically it doesn't cover the entire bottom of the pan. But because we've added chocolate chips, clearly it adds volume to the mixture and it does coat the bottom of the pan. I don't want you to be alarmed if you make this without them and it doesn't cover the bottom. It's okay. You'll probably be about an inch short on one side because you want to make sure it's all even. Once you bake it, it'll fill that in a little bit, but it's not a problem. All right, so we want to make sure that we've got it in here neatly and evenly, okay? And then you can take your spatula and you can kind of smooth down the top a little bit, because what happens is when you use your fingers, it leaves little finger marks in the top, which really, some of them will bake out and you won't see them, and it doesn't bother me anyway, because I put the icing on and whatever and whatnot. But anyway, just to keep it all consistent and uniform, we're going to just press it out flat. Perfect. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pop this into our preheated oven, and it's going to bake for approximately 30 minutes. Now, usually I'll test at the 30-minute mark, and if it's not ready, I'll put it back in for another 5 minutes or so. Everybody's oven is different, so I recommend checking it at the 25-minute mark and going from there. You'll know that it's completely baked when it has sort of a matte finish on top. It won't be shiny anymore. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the oven. Set my timer for 30. And you want it to have a golden, hold on, I can only do one thing at a time. You want it to have a golden finish. You don't want it too pale blonde, but you want it to have a nice golden finish to the top of it also. Okay, so I'm gonna let that bake. I'm gonna clean up a little bit, and then we'll come back and we will prepare our coffee icing. All right, so we are back to make our coffee icing. And all that's going to require is powdered sugar and brewed coffee. Now I have our bars here, our shortbread bars, and I put them in for 30 minutes. They weren't quite ready, so I put them in for another 5. So these baked for 35 minutes in my oven. All right. So what I did was this morning when I brewed my coffee, I left it in the pot, what was left over, which wasn't much. And that's what I'm using for the icing today. So what I did was I just poured a little bit, let me move it so you can see it, of my coffee into here. All right, so we've got 1 cup of powdered sugar. And then I'm going to add, let me get a fork. I'm going to add a little bit of brewed coffee, a tablespoon at a time, to the powdered sugar. Okay, so let's start with 1 and see what happens. I know I'm going to need more than 1, so I'm going to put 2. Then I'm going to mix it. See what we've got. You could always add a little bit of coffee extract to this as well. You can use you can add a little dab of espresso powder. You could also add a tablespoon of cocoa powder if you'd like it to be more of a chocolate coffee icing. So there's lots of different options you have here. You can leave it without the icing, or you can just do a plain icing and use powdered sugar and water with a dab of vanilla, or you can use powdered sugar with milk. You don't have to add the vanilla. It's totally up to you. However you want to customize it will work. Okay, it's looking good, but I need just a little bit more coffee. I'm going to use like another, not even a half a tablespoon, because you don't want to get it too watery. If you do, it's no problem. You can just add more powdered sugar to it. But we want it spreadable, but not too watery. All right, let's see. This looks good. I'm going to get a little spatula, but I want to do this so you guys can see it. That's the consistency that I'm going for. If you want to double up on this recipe, it's fine. You can do that. That's not a problem. But for me, I'm not going to coat the shortbread with the icing. I'm going to drizzle it on. Just because that's how I like it. But you can double this and you can coat it. All right. So I'm just going to take it like this and do a drizzle. And it's okay if the shortbread isn't 100% cool at this point, because as it cools, the icing will cool with it and it'll work just fine. So I'm just kind of going side to side with my spoon, drizzling it on. You could even add some little mini chips to the top of this if you wanted to. Okay, now I'm going to go in the opposite direction. Pretty, so pretty. That's how. All right, there we go. I actually have some left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cool down completely at this point, and because it's still warm, that's why I didn't touch it. I'm going to let it cool down completely, and I'm going to save that and see if I want to add some more. But I'm happy with the way it looks, and I'm sure I'm going to be happy with the way it tastes. So what to do is after it cools, you can actually just take your foil like this, lift it up out of the pan, put it on the counter, and cut it with a serrated knife. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay, guys, so I hope you've enjoyed this recipe. I would love for you to like this video and subscribe. It's a free way that you could support your favorite creators. I would truly appreciate it. And stay tuned, because at the end of this video, I'm going to add some of my, let's call it, behind the scene footage. The things I do off screen. How about that? And it might make you laugh, or you might think I'm ridiculous, whatever it is, but I'm going to add it to the end of this video just for fun. All right, friends, happy Christmas in July. Merry Christmas in July. I'll see you again soon.